Welcome to Star Kittens Media, where we discuss 13 sign astrology. Today, David and I have a conversation about the upcoming full moon, where the sun is in Leo, the moon is in Capricorn. We discuss two T-squares, one with Uranus and the other one with Asteroid Lilith. The full moon occurs on the 20th of August at 6:25 a.m. here in New Zealand, or on the 19th of August at 2:26 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So much going on. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. Welcome to our new episode where we are discussing the full moon in August, and she is a busy one. The sun has just moved in its home sign of Leo. So welcome, David. Please, busy, tell us more.
Kia ora and hello and welcome to our new subscribers and listeners. We appreciate you and all that are involved in this community. So, yes, it is busy. Looking at the chart, which I'm sure once you see it on the screen, you'll see there is a lot going on, and it's always a challenge, I guess, when there's so many things to talk about, to just pare it back to a few aspects that I think will resonate. So what we'll look at today is firstly just sort of setting the scene as I've mentioned before with full and new moons. Certainly a full moon is as a crescendo or a peak. It's a culmination. And in this particular context, with it being in Capricorn, we're talking very much about personal and professional projects and our emotional reaction to that. The moon in Capricorn means that it's in an earth sign, so we're blending water, emotion, and earth, our physical experience, together. And so therefore, the manifestation of this will be in our surroundings, in our bodies, and in our physical resources. Capricorn we consider to be the domain of career and public profile, and this is where our reputation comes forward. So this is a practical moon, and it's about where our roles and responsibilities will be in focus, and those roles and responsibilities within the family, within our communities, within our workplace, or any other domain where we're interacting with others. The sun in Leo, of course, on the other side, is a dramatic, expressive, dynamic, loud, potentially overbearing, and on the shadow side, shades of arrogance and domineering energies can come through there. And the sun in Leo, you know, there are lots of positive aspects, but there are also other aspects, such as this can lend itself to being self-absorbed and really caught up in ego. And a combination of Leo on the sun and Capricorn on the moon brings into focus our achievements, or our sense of achievement, our goals, our successes and our failures. Of course, the sun will rise and shine regardless of success or failure. It makes no distinction, and I think it's important to say that. This is not a time for shrinking violet or wallflower type behavior. This is a time for confidence, for self-assertion, and to be really self-assured. When you look at the spirit animals, firstly for Capricorn, the goat is the symbol of rugged individualism. And of course, the sun and Leo is the lion and the lioness are the animals, which most people would associate with courage and resilience and strength. We won't do much of a deep dive into the moon trine to Mars. Suffice to say, Mars is sitting in Taurus, so again, more earth energy, and really this gives a push. So if you are aggressively pursuing goals, if you've got lots of ambition, be that in the workplace, be that in your business, be that in at school or in the academic field, there's a big push coming through energetically, a positive push. Yesterday I was walking up a hill and there was wind behind me, blowing behind me, and it felt like I was actually getting pushed physically. The wind was so strong, I felt like I was getting pushed, and that's kind of a metaphor for what the Mars moon energy is. But that's all we'll say about that, because there's a lot more to talk about. Overall, this is a great time to make a career move. The windows of opportunity are there. It's a very good time to invest in property or physical or hard assets. The combination of energies certainly show that. We will touch on and do a little bit of a deep dive into a T-square. These are quite rare, and I'll explain more later, but there's two T-squares to consider, both very important. One where the sun and moon form a T-square with Uranus and Taurus, again, that earth energy. And this is about breakthrough in the area of our resources and our emotional relationship to resources, and also a breakthrough in the area of our creativity. And finally, the T-square, there's another one as well with Lilith, the asteroid Lilith, who's sitting in Libra. And this is bringing forward a discussion about the distorted and suppressed feminine energies that exist in consciousness, and bringing these into balance. And we'll touch on that and do a bit more of a deep dive on that as well.
Too much, almost. As you say, I think sometimes it's quite hard to really choose what to cover. And I think that you have your own ways of listening to the messages that are coming through to know what to cover at that particular time. And maybe the push up the hill yesterday was enough for you to make a distinctive choice in what to cover today. The moon in Capricorn, I quite like the moon being in earth energies, and we've discussed previously about the 3 stages of the earthly energies. Of course, first starting in Taurus, and then it's being more refined in Virgo, and then put on the marketplace in Capricorn. So how do you see these earthly energies shining through the full moon now?
Well, as I mentioned before, it's sometimes helpful to look at different aspects of symbolism and mythology when it comes to any astrological reading, and that includes looking at, as I mentioned before, the spirit animal. And the spirit animal very much linked to Capricorn is the goat. And a quick sort of look at the history of this, it goes back thousands of years. There are many cultures that bring through the goat in their mythology. Broadly, it's a symbol of greatness and excellence, strength, virility, and fertility. The cultural references to goats are clear in terms of the magical power of the goat and the spiritual essence of the goat as well. They tend to be related to wealth and abundance, which is very much Capricorn energy, absolutely. And words that come to mind: determination and resilience. I mean, we often laugh about, I remember doing a reading recently where you and I were talking to someone about who had that Capricorn energy, and I asked her to consider, have you ever seen a goat up on a mountain, and you wonder how on earth they got there. And we laughed about the fact that these are creatures that can do incredible things. So in the Greek pantheon, there was a deity named Pan that was linked to the goat, or goat features. And this deity was wild and untamed, but was the guardian of farming and hunting, very much earth energies. And in Rome, the Roman history, there was a deity named Bacchus, who oversaw wine and revelry and agriculture, again, very much linking back to the earth. Of course, there's a very prominent story that probably many of our listeners and viewers have heard, which is the separation of the sheep and the goats. Well, whilst I won't go deep into that particular story, I think it illustrates that the sheep on the one hand represent broadly compliance and falling in, whereas the goat, the separation of the goat, the sheep and the goat represents independence and self-sovereignty, and the desire for autonomy. Of course, the goat and the Capricorn are all tied back to the devil in the tarot card, which is a warning of materialism and complacency. And of course, that card, when you look at the different pieces of it, the man and the woman with the chain around their neck and the tail, one of them's got the tail of grapes and the other one, the tail on fire. And you've got this Baphomet creature sitting there with a pentagram and his hand up, and it can be a scary image. And I think that it bears drawing or drawing near to that at this particular point in time, because this is the other side of Capricorn. Of course, that devil card talks about temptation and desire and the darker aspects of ambition and self-promotion and even hubris. And it talks also about the secrets of duality. We have two sides to our nature. We have this animal side and we have this kind of spiritual side, this higher, more evolved side. And the concepts of temptation and how to transform that in our lives so that we don't get caught up in it. So these sort of Capricorn Moon goat issues all come together. I mentioned before about that trine to Mars, which I'll touch on again, is that this is about finding our inner resolve, taking the next step and leveling up and going, increasing the intensity. And again, if I use the illustration of exercise, this would be about right now saying, okay, maybe you've hit a plateau or you've hit your limits. The Mars energy here in a trine to the full moon in Capricorn is saying push, 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 push. Ride the momentum and take advantage of opportunities which are absolutely going to open up in the areas of ambition and career and professional and personal projects as well.
The magic happens when you step out of your comfort zone. Well, I thought it was interesting what you said about more of the shadow aspect of Capricorn. I also see that similarly in the shadow side of Leo, that really ego, personality, just taking it that step too far. So the sun has now moved into Leo. What I love about the way that we talk about astrology is that there's no great or bad sign, and every sign has a beauty to it and a shadow side. And there's a lot of people that wish to be a Leo, but don't necessarily really understand the more of the shadow side. There's no bad side, more of the shadow side of that. So I hope that you can highlight a little bit about that today.
And of course, using turning sign astrology, which is what we do, there are many Leos, and I put quote unquote out there, who are actually Cancer. And if you have never really felt like a Leo, but you were a Leo in the 12 sign, hit us up for a chart, because this is one of these cusps between the Leo and the Cancer energy that are really important and can make a profound difference to your outlook and awareness of the energies that are contained within you, and how to come into alignment with your divine design. Cancer and a Leo are very different, as we know. But a sun and a Leo, of course, opposite, the moon in Capricorn. And remember, again, we're talking about 13 sign astrology, so the actual position of the planets rather than the overlay of the 12 sign, which would have the 12 sign astrologers talking about if there's ever a moon in Capricorn, of course, the sun will be in Cancer. And that's the point that I'm trying to make here. But broadly speaking, a sun in Leo is clearly about confident self-expression. This is like if the Capricorn energy is about our public profile and our career and our ambition and success in the pursuit of those things, which I mentioned before, then the sun in Leo is like your public relations consultant. Self-assertion, creativity is often associated with arts, but it can also be in business, it can be in sport, and the combination of the Leo and Capricorn energies really is more broadly about competitive environments, and they are everywhere. The energy here supports publicity, marketing, sales, and success. But there's a natural tension, of course, between the full moon on the sun and the moon on opposite sides. There's naturally a tension, and the tension in this context is about between our self-image and our public image. There's therefore a trade-off that could be coming up for us, issues of trade-off between a pursuit of our career and that caring sort of focus on the home. And the trajectory here, though, broadly is about celebrating and recognizing your successes. Like the goat that's been able to climb to a high spot and to look around from that perspective, there may only be one goat. There may only be two goats in that situation as well. That is about you've earned your spot. So take the praise. It's okay to do so, and that's what Leo is saying. Don't shy away from it. However, like you mentioned before, these energies can move from kind of really positive expression to a more darker expression. There's a tendency or an opportunity for some to fall into a kind of a king or the queen of the hill dynamic, to be a little over the top about what it is that they've succeeded in, and to be a little full of themselves. That could happen. And that's also going to be amplified because when you talk about Capricorn and Leo together, there's a lot of masculine energy and vibration there, which tends to be a little bit more forceful. And of course, I mentioned about the Mars trine as well. So there's three really big masculine energies coming through at this full moon.
Yes. And then let's talk about that first T-square. So both the sun and the moon are making a square with Uranus. Uranus, of course, relates to the Tower in the tarot cards, and Uranus is in Taurus right now.
More energy. So for those unfamiliar, a T-square is, just imagine a triangle, and the bottom two are the opposition, so that's your sun and moon, and at the peak is the third energy, which in this case is Uranus. So that is clearly, I mentioned before about competitive environments. When you think about the sun, moon, and Uranus, look at them from the perspective of the sun is fire, the moon is water, the air, and Uranus is air. If you were doing an experiment and you were to play with fire and water and air in a controlled environment, imagine how volatile that could be, how explosive potentially that could be if just one of them is out of balance. So what we're talking about with a T-square, they can be really tricky. And when they pop up in the charts, especially during a full moon, when tensions can be quite high anyway, and we've talked about the Leo energy and the Capricorn energy, that sort of look at me energy as well. We're kind of blending the modes of action, fire, water, emotion, and air, thought. Really difficult to do. It's difficult enough to balance head and heart energies, let alone three. So, you know, the earth signs of Taurus and Capricorn, though, are very grounded. They're very practical, but they focus on work and they focus on resources. And resources typically is money, but it's also how we use our time. Uranus, as you mentioned before, the Tower card. This is, I like to, many descriptions of that card talk only about the dark side of it and what can happen that tends towards the worst expression of that Uranian energy when the lightning strikes the tower. But I like to describe that card as a breakdown or breakthrough moment. So therefore, the Tower card, which is Uranus energy expressed through that particular modality, is talking about disruption and sudden change. The link to Capricorn through the T-square could be that there is a public fall from grace, a sort of penthouse to outhouse disgrace experience. Could be somebody you know. This could be somebody in the public domain. It could be somebody in your local community. It could be your boss at work. It could be anywhere. That potential when you have that Uranian disruption with Capricorn's kind of ambitious pursuit and Leo's fire and self-expression, which can lend itself to arrogance and hubris, there's a lot of energy there that says there could be some falls from grace here. You know, penthouse to outhouse, as I've described, a toppling of a corrupt, unyielding or oppressive rulers or governors, managers, CEOs, politicians. There could be a reversal of fortunes. And these things, as I mentioned right in the beginning, they could be playing out in the home. They could be playing out in your workplace. They could be playing out in your local community, or they could be playing out on the world stage. So all of that is in the mix with a T-square. Unyielding and oppressive rulers, a reversal of fortunes is possible as the wheel turns. You know, the sun is shining on, okay, sure, there's ambition, there's pursuit, you've reached the pinnacle, but how did you get there? And that's what that Uranian energy could possibly bring through. It's no guarantee, of course, but this is what is foreshadowed. A reversal of fortunes, especially against unethical leadership. The time is up and there could be some catastrophes that are played out. The Leo energy really makes sure that if this is worth knowing, it'll be in the media for sure. So there is energy of danger, crisis, but there's also energy of liberation and release. And this could be personal or professional, collective or individual. The influence of the Leo sun means that there's absolutely nowhere to hide. The full moon always talks about revelation and realization, but we could get with this Uranian energy and the T-square energy. You may have heard the expression, the emperor wears no clothes, and oh my goodness moment where there's this powerful leader or figure is humbled, and we realize that there's no substance there. It was all just bait and switch and mirrors and whatnot, sleight of hand. I would not be surprised, given all of these energies, and especially with that supposed creative Leo energy, for hit pieces to come out. There could be some media sensations. There could be some shocking turns of events that surprise us and equally disturb us. But at the same time, there could be opportunities for promotion. This is on an individual level, a breakthrough, or if you're a female, a crumbling of the glass ceiling, where impediments to your projects and work could just fall away. And we'll talk about that, where that glass ceiling energy is coming through with the asteroid Lilith in Libra. There's a T-square there, very much on the table right now, where that could shatter. And the link to Capricorn and the Devil card, when you have the Tower and the Devil card, kind of, there's a bit of a moral of the story there, and it's just be smart with your ambition. Just remember always that we are spirit, having a temporary human experience, and no matter how successful, no matter how awesome it feels to be the king of the hill, to be the at the pinnacle of something, it's only ever temporary. You know, the trinkets and the rewards are only ever temporary, and they can be, that is the secret. One of the secrets of the devil card is we can be caught up and ensnared in all of that emotion, the moon. But the warning here is just put it in perspective and make sure that you see it for what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and stay humble.
Yeah.
Keep your feet firmly grounded and be kind. So Lilith, the asteroid Lilith, I love that we discuss the physical asteroid Lilith rather than some astrologers talk about a I don't want to say imaginary, but it's a point in the chart, but we talk about the actual asteroid Lilith, and she currently is in a Libra. You mentioned already some feminine energy, so how does she come into play now?
Yeah, Lilith is a very important archetype in the astrological mosaic, in our opinion. She is at the taproot of feminine consciousness. So let me explain a little bit more about that. Lilith is often related to or linked to or interchanged with Eve. The Eve who that most or many know about is the Eve of the Bible who ate of the tree of life, and therefore has been associated since that point with evil, the loss of innocence. And that has led to a industry, if you like, of blaming and some habitual characteristics within humanity of blaming and shaming and gaslighting females. Eve also, though, in the myth and the legend and the stories of Lilith, so Eve and Lilith often, again, interchanged, and we've talked about that before, where you get these different names for the same archetypes or same deities, Zeus and Jupiter, Poseidon, Neptune, for example, Kronos and Saturn. There's lots and lots of these. And it's all to do with the philosophical grounding or the philosophical history of which culture, whether it's the Greeks or the Latins or in the East, how they came up with the stories and how they've configured the stories. So just bear in mind, when I'm talking about Eve here, we're talking about the Lilith archetype. Eve, who ate of the tree of life. There's also another story about Eve, who left Adam to pursue her freedom and her liberty and her self-expression. And that is very much an expression of the sun and Uranian energy put together. Lilith, therefore, is sometimes called the dark moon, but I don't think that tells the full story, but it certainly alludes to the fact that Lilith absolutely is linked to moon cycles. But some of the distortion, therefore, of Lilith, when we go back into the history of the burning at the stake and that sort of thing that is historical, has certainly been represented as historical fact. There's some horrible things have happened around pagan rituals and witchcraft and occult. But actually, Lilith, when she left Lilith or Eve, when she left Adam, she left because that relationship was oppressive and she wasn't able to express herself. So the pursuit of moon cycles, for example, is one of the ways that we can really get into alignment with source. Moon cycles, one of my secrets when we talk about ambition and success in business and pursuit of goals, one of the things I do absolutely is follow the lunar cycle, because of course you get 28 days and it's always 28 days, and you can actually get 13 months of productivity packed into 12 months when everyone else is doing a 12-month Gregorian calendar. You're into 13 months. So in fact, it's much more aligned with source and creative energy to be aligned with the moon cycles. And certainly Lilith understood that. But the Lilith schism is not only playing out in the collective, it also plays out in us, like within us. And it plays out and expresses in things like this whole idea of the left brain and the right brain. And some people are totally focused on the left brain and some people are totally focused on the right brain. Whereas I say that the Lilith and Libra energy is about whole brain. So it's the ability to use both hemispheres or both sides of our energies. That left eye, right eye, third eye. The Lilith energy is about bringing that intuition forward and tapping into the universal consciousness through not the left eye, the right eye, but the third eye. Of course, then with the distortions, the Eve 8 of the Tree of Life, we have this root of the patriarchal worldview, which is based on that whole idea that women can't be trusted. This is where this comes from. So the patriarchal worldview of command and control and a mistrust of intuition and therefore the right brain faculties is very much rooted in this archetype and the distortion of the Lilith archetype. And in many cultures still today, and I don't want to be culturally insensitive, but there are a lot of women walking around on this planet in certain nations that are not allowed to be clothed in anything other than a slit across the eyes. You get the picture. So this patriarchal worldview is about suppression of the feminine, which ties back to this whole thing of Lilith is at the root of all evil, so therefore we need to push her away. The male distortion is that feminine mystique is to be feared, shunned, and subjugated. And we see that, I don't need to talk too much about that. You don't have to look far to see that happening, especially in religions, but it's also in cultural manifestations as well. But the male distortion is to suppress that Lilith power, which is linked to, the archetype is linked to that of the serpent and the dragon or the snake, which are, again, are the keys to enlightenment. The rising of the kundalini up the 33 vertebrae of the spine, bringing us into awareness, full awareness. So Lilith in Libra and the importance of this when it comes to the moon in Capricorn, which is about this ambition and pursuit, and the sun in Leo, which is about confidence, self-expression, is that I mentioned before about in the Mars energy as well. There's so much masculine energy here. But actually, Lilith in Libra through the T-square is saying, look, we need to embrace both energies. There's a feminine source to all of this as well. The battle of the sexes is very much based in the distortion of Lilith archetype. The man at the top, the CEO, the male bosses, the rule with the iron fist, that's the Capricorn energy coming through. The primacy of Mars, the masculine anima, no life actually, though. Libra, Lilith, T-square to the full moon says, actually, you know what, guys? There's no life without feminine, and that is the balance. So Lilith in Libra is reminding us that we need to restore balance to these distorted views and perspectives, and that there is a massive frontier right now for consciousness, for the collective. There is a huge battle going on around gender, roles, responsibilities of male and female. Anyone who spent any time looking at the Olympics will know what I'm talking about here, and sports and so on. There's a huge push to mess with this whole thing of gender identity. So honest conversations need to be had, and that's what the T-square is talking about. And we need to celebrate our diversity. And that male view of individual pursuit, which is very much a Capricorn energy and can be Leo energy as well, versus the female view of collective and collaboration. And that male top-down view of the world is coming into, is having to meet in the middle, this idea of groundswell and bottom-up, and, you know, it's not just about the few at the top making the decisions for the many. It's about the many making the decisions together and coming together. I know it's not easy. It's not a simple process at all. But this is what the T-square of the sun and moon with the Lilith and Libra archetypal asteroid is really all about.
Yeah, and it's the ability to come to conversations with an open mind. And not have your own agenda to push that through. Doesn't matter whether you are a male or a female. I think if we can meet each other with an empty cup or an open mind, however you want to express that, and then just be acceptant that we don't all think the same, because wouldn't life be boring if we all thought the same? We all wore the same. Oh, no, thank you. I don't want to. I like diversity and just respecting each other, that we're all on our own path, one step closer to our divine design, using astrology in this case. So we've touched on the sun, the moon, Uranus, briefly about Mars as well, and Lilith. How would you like to sum all that up?
It's intense. This is an intense. What's going on right now is really full on. And you mentioned that at the beginning. But just to draw it back, the Capricorn energy, where it sits in the mosaic, it's the 10th energy, or the 10th house. And it's opposite the 4th house, which means that what happens in the home and in private and behind closed doors absolutely affects what happens in public. So you have this strong relationship between the moon and Capricorn at all times, where, you know, a happy home life generally is supportive of a productive and effective career, whatever that looks like. It doesn't always have to be in the business world. But the theme here is about career, but more broadly, it's about roles and responsibilities that we play, and the roles and responsibilities that we can fall into culturally and that are based on gender. So some of those ideas need to be broken down, and obviously, you know, down here in New Zealand and Australia, there's a female league for rugby, and it's very prominent, and it's great to watch. And that's a classic example of, historically, females didn't play that game, that physical contact game, that contact sport, but now they do, and they do it really well. And in fact, they bring a dimension to that whole area of competitiveness, sporting environment, which is very much what we're talking about here, this Capricorn energy. That's a great example of breaking that down. You know, doctors have traditionally and historically been males. Well, now we get lots of female doctors and so on. So all of these roles and responsibilities that we have fallen into, sometimes culturally or due to expectations from the family, they need to be looked at. So the focus is very practical. It's very much a physical experience that we're going through at this full moon, and it's about a meaning that we derive from work. That's an important point here. And the use and leverage of resources. You mentioned before about, of course, Earth energy starts with Taurus and moves through to Virgo and culminates in Capricorn. Capricorn goat, we touched on that in the mythology, the rugged individualism that is symbolized by that creature, which expresses as, what's your skill set? What is the maximum use of your skills? How can you really empty your cup in terms of the skills that you bring to the table for whatever project you're working on, whatever pursuit it is that you're following? And again, this can be personal or professional. And Capricorn relates therefore to mastery of your skill set and putting that out into the world so that you can be effective. Excuse me. Then we have the Leo and the other side, the Leo and the Lioness, the creativity. Again, that isn't just about the Hollywood stars, the musical performances, the actors. Creativity comes in everywhere. So it can be in sport, it can be in business, it can be in the home, the way that you parent, it can be everywhere. Creativity has no limits. But the Leo Lioness message is be creative, be expressive, be confident. In terms of timing, if you are looking to make a career move, if you are looking to up-level your skills, if you are looking to invest in hard assets, if you are looking to expand your business, the winds are behind you, and that's a good time to do that. However, be aware that the Uranian energy is one of upheaval and disruption, but as I mentioned before, it can go both ways. This can be the breakthrough of the glass ceiling, or it can be the breakdown and the removal of an oppressive boss or a leader. Suddenly they're gone. And this upheaval, breakdown, or breakthrough, the Uranian influence can happen in our communities, can happen in our workplace, or it can happen on the world stage. The lesson of the Devil card, i.e. Capricorn and the Devil card, are very much linked, is to enjoy material pleasure and success, but don't let it define you. Mm-hmm. And the root of the distorted patriarchal worldview that we are battling against, all of us, whether we acknowledge it or not, comes back to the subjugation of that divine feminine and the original Eve. And that subjugation of that feminine archetype is one of the themes or ideas or concepts that is coming forth right now. We need to collaborate and to communicate and to connect. That's your Uranian energy as well. And finally, bringing all of this together, but particularly the Lilith message, is about integration of our left and right brain energies and faculties, whole brain thinking, and heart head coherence, where we're in alignment. The schism, the Lilith schism, happens firstly within us, and therefore it expresses outwardly from there. We see it mirrored back to us in the collective, but it actually starts with that integration, starts with coming and recognizing that I have the ability to operate both in the left brain rational and the right brain creative, and the third brain, third eye rather, intuition, and it's bringing all of that together into one cohesive kind of bundle, if you like, or a bundle of skills that can make you the Leo expressive, the Leo powerful, and the Capricorn success that you are seeking in your life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. If you have enjoyed this conversation, then please share it far and wide. The more people that know about the true position of the planetary bodies, the sooner we can restore this beautiful planet. Both David and I feel that if we step into that power that we actually came here with, rather than trying to make the 12 sign fit, I think, as I said, restoration can be a lot quicker coming our way. If you are on the cusp, or if you think you really align with the 12 sign and you're like, oh no, I possibly can't be a Cancer, you could do yourself a big disservice. And we just want to open this conversation with you to step into that true essence of your life. So if that sounds like something you are ready to do, then please hit us up for a chat or a reading. Our links will be in the description. Thank you so much for today, David. I hope it will resonate with our audience.
Thank you. what I would say as a footnote is thank you for listening and namaste.
Namaste, namihi.